Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
Yo, your boy is back. It has been a while. I'm trying something different today. So this time I'm actually just going to be using my phone camera, which is what's being used right now. So hopefully like videos are just way clearer, but also with the mic. Yeah, hopefully that should be coming through, but this will just be a test, man, cuz dude, I'm looking at this video quality right now and it is insane, bro. So let's dive into it. Yeah, hopefully everything's working okay. So I'm just gonna start yapping, and we'll see how this goes. But first of all, it's probably been like a full month since my last episode, so apologies on that one. Honestly, getting back into the school grind has been a grind. So we finna lock in now. Anyways, I have two stories for this episode. The first story is how I came into Northwestern as a freshman, and originally I was gonna be a software engineer. Like I was really hyped about going in and becoming an engineer, which is why I was a computer science major. And so being computer science, I had to take all of these CS and math classes. And so I did that my fall quarter. So the first quarter I did that, it went fine. Second quarter is when I started kind of having some doubts. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is for me. I think like this entrepreneurship thing, it sounds kind of interesting. And so I was kind of thinking about that, kind of holding it in the back of my head. And then eventually I just sent it. Like a couple weeks into the second quarter, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send it. Like, it's so much to juggle all this math and CS and all this random stuff. So I ended up switching my major from CS to econ to economics. After making the switch, I realized that I didn't have to take all of these like CS and math classes. So I just straight up dropped it. I dropped it immediately. And the thing is that looking back at that situation, with everything I had going on, honestly, it was probably a good thing that I dropped it because it just gave me time back to like focus on my health and stuff. Because honestly, at that time, bro, my mental, physical health, it was just like, it was terrible. But the thing is that like in the classes, I was doing completely fine. Like grade wise, I didn't have to study for too long. CS classes were fine. I did have to put a ton of like time and hours into it, but honestly, looking back at the situation now, I think that would, or if I could go and tell that person now, it'd be like, bro, thug it out. And that's probably like one of the terms, honestly, that a friend of mine was using when I lived back in SF, and he just says like, oh, well, let's just thug it out. And since then, I've just kind of been like taking it to heart in a way, because even I remember back when I was a sophomore, that was probably one of the hardest working time periods in my life. Like that period of just working 3 internships on top of rugby, on top of like trying to stay on top of health, and then all the other stuff I had. Oh, and then the startup that I was building. Like it was so many things, and that was like a key moment where I truly did just thug it out. And what it means to thug it out is like when there is a super tough, super hard time or and period that we're trying to go through. A lot of what it means to thug it out is like raising the pain tolerance, raising the bar of how much I can handle and take in. And I think this quarter specifically is probably another good example of this, where I was taking this philosophy class, and part of me just wanted to drop the philosophy class immediately because I was looking on the syllabus, and on the syllabus there was a specific assignment where it said we had an in-person essay. And with the in-person essay, I was like, I'm not sure I want to put myself through that. Like, I'm not sure that's really, really worth it, because like I'm just gonna like A out on myself. Like, there's no point of it. But then I realized, like, why not just thug it out? Why not just like go through it, just put myself through the class, and raise my pain tolerance, so to say. And the reason I say that is because keep in mind I'm working this full-time job at Leland and doing all the other stuff with like training for this half marathon that's coming up. But I decided to thug it out. And I think that's probably just like one of the big takeaways I've had, and probably advice that I would give my younger self, like 18-year-old self, and even like younger people who are really like coming up, is to thug it out. Because there are going to be those times, those seasons of just work, and so much work. And in those moments, you truly just got to thug it out. Like, I think Alex Hormozi has a similar type of saying where it's like, there are some of those, how would you say, those business problems that you just have to take. And there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, so that's the first story of thugging it out. And the second story is this past weekend, my sisters came over for Halloween weekend, and we had a good time. I was kind of just like showing them the college life. So one of the days, I believe this was Saturday, in the morning, we're getting ready, and then we head off to Six Flags because we're going to Six Flags for the day. And so we go, and before, like on the way there, we stopped by this restaurant, and we stopped by the restaurant. It's like my favorite Hawaiian spot in the area. It's like 30 minutes away. So we stopped by there, grabbed some food, and there's 5 of us. And 5 is kind of like an awkward number to have because it's like not enough to have 6, but also like too much for 4. And so 5 is like you have the 2 seats on both ends, and then you have like one kind of like at the head of the table. And so of course, like we had the 4 seats, which everyone else took, which we had 5 in this party, and then me, that was on the end of the table. And so yeah, we were just like grabbing the dinner, and it was whatever. We had at Six Flags, had a great time. And then after, we stopped at another restaurant. It was the same situation. It was kind of weird. So we had 2 on each side, and then 1 at the end of the table. And so I was sitting at the end of the table, and my sister's like, "Wait, I want to be at the head of the table." And I was like, "Sure, like if you want to, like by all means, go ahead." And so we switched places, and now she's at the head of the table. And I thought it was interesting because what you don't see, or what it might look like on the outside, is like, oh, that's the head of the table. Like, there's so much power. Like, man, I wish I could be at the head of the table. But there's these things that you don't really notice, and one of those things is that being at the head of the table, in air quotes, is that you don't really have leg room. It's really awkward because it's so small that the other 2 people are taking up all the space, and you kind of have to like lean over literally all the way, and then like eat basically just scrunched over the whole time. And that was like kind of a very symbolic type of, I don't know, of story, because there are so many instances where I think this is true. And I think like building companies and in the startup world, this is a perfect example. Like from the outside, someone might look at me like in my position where I have this job at this growing startup, and also finishing up school, all these things. And they might look at that and be like, man, I wish I could have all that. And then the same situation for even like looking at an Olympian, and they won the gold medal, and I might look at them like, man, I wish I could win that gold medal. But what you don't understand is all of the work and the behind the scenes that you really don't notice. And the gold medal is a perfect example of this, where I might look at them like, man, I want to be a gold medalist, but am I willing to take on those 5 a.m. workouts in the morning, and then after that eating the breakfast that goes along with a strict diet, and then getting the second workout of the day, and then after that like getting the third workout, like all of this time, effort, and energy that goes into those things that we don't see from the outside. And I think that was kind of like a symbolic story. Honestly, it wasn't that deep like in the moment, but I think it just kind of like took me back of one of those pretty cool stories. So those are the 2 stories I have for this episode. And now moving on to doubles of the week. These are 2 dubs and 2 L's I took from the past week, or really from the past month, because it's been a month since my last episode. So first dub is Mateo Price came in to speak at the garage. And honestly, you probably don't know who he is, but I guarantee you know who Mr. Beast is. So this guy, Mateo Price, he's a NU alum, and he graduated probably like, honestly, not too long ago. I want to say within the past 4, 6-ish years, around that time. And he is the chief strategy officer for Mr. Beast, which is kind of insane. Like, he is literally the guy with Mr. Beast, which just blew my mind. But basically, he came in and he spoke, and he had a ton of really cool insights. Honestly, the biggest takeaway I had from the whole like discussion was how data driven he is, and like Mr. Beast in general, and the whole company. It's pretty insane, honestly, because they mentioned how he had something like the scraper for just YouTube would scrape 800,000, maybe 80,000, but like an insane number of videos. And what they would do is they would check the video, and see if they had any outliers per channel. So for example, they would check the video and the views and see if it had like a specific outlier from the past 30 videos or from the past like 30 days. And it was kind of insane. Like, so they would take all of that, and then from that they would dissect like the different titles and thumbnails that they would use. And then only after locking in the title and thumbnail would they start actually developing like the different ideas for the video itself. And I thought that was just like insane to understand and see like the amount of data that Mr. Beast is using. Because realistically, like in my head, the way I would think about YouTube and really other like creative industries, like, oh, it's just like you look at your finger, put your finger in the air and like see where things go. But this was like very much data driven insights, and it's only really understanding like they know these things will work, and so it's just like packaging it in a way that's authentic to the Mr. Beast brand. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that was the first dub. And then the second dub for this episode is my evolving role at Leland. So I just had a new role literally last week that was given to me. So as a bit of background, I started off as a growth intern for boot camps, one of our products at Leland. And I was an intern, and then I kind of like, how would you say, bit off a lot more than I could chew. Or not bit off more than I could chew, but I just kind of like started taking on a whole bunch of different projects. So I was technically like an intern for boot camps, but I kind of just became like an all-around intern, just like doing whatever. Like honestly, just doing whatever like the vibes told me to do. But I did that, and then after that, when I came on full-time, they specialized my role on the growth team. And so I was specifically focused on campus growth, which basically just means like, how do we get more college students knowing about Leland and using Leland and purchasing Leland and everything like that. So that was my role for the past like month and a half. And then last week I just have a new role, or I was just given this new role called, like, they're calling it like the GM in training, which is basically like we have this whole nother team at Leland called the GM team. And the way it works is GM stands for general manager, is we have a general manager for each of the different like business lines. And there's really 3 major business lines that we have at Leland, which is our boot camps, which is the product that I was an intern for. We have Leland Plus, which is our new subscription product, and then one-on-one coaching, which is like the most premium product that we have. And so those are like the 3 business lines, and we have 3 GMs for each of those. Or actually, we don't have a bootcamp GM yet, but we will have one of those. And then there's like me, and then my former manager actually over the summer, he is now taking over the head of GM team. And so I'm kind of like, it's basically the same setup we had over the summer. Like I'm going to be his intern in a way, but like I'm still a full-time employee, but like still an intern. I guess you call it a chief of staff type of thing. But this is all to say, it's a very roundabout way of saying that I'm super excited for this new role at Leland. Honestly, I think it's way more exciting than like campus growth, because it truly is like this really cool chief of staff type of role. And instead of like channel specific growth, it's very broad of how to grow like these business lines, because the whole genesis or the whole idea behind this GM team is that it'll be like this founder factory. Like this is where founders are created and made, is on the GM team. And so that'll be really cool. And I'm meeting with Nick, my former manager, tomorrow to hone in on what my specific like roles and tasks will be, which is basically the way how would you say, the way I predict it will be is very focused on growth for Leland Plus and boot camps. So that's how I predict it'll go. Honestly, super excited for that. But moving on to L's of the week. First off, honestly, like one of the bigger L's is I haven't done the pod in ages, man. Yeah, it's been very, very long. And honestly, like I always get these like flashbacks where I go and scroll through past podcasts or past like Strava posts, which I did earlier today. And it's cool just seeing like the progression and journey. And these month like intervals between podcasts, bro, it's just not enough to really get in the weeds of what the journey is all about. And I'm realizing, just like talking out loud now, is that the whole point of this podcast is really to be like super authentic in the journey. And what's cool, or not what's cool, but like what's probably most important in this, in being super authentic, is making sure that I'm doing these pods even when I'm like feeling super low. And that's probably the best reason to do these pods, is when in those lows, because I had a really big low probably like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago it was like really, really rough, just trying to like manage and handle everything. I turned to binge eating again, which honestly was not my how would you say it? Not the proudest moment for sure. But yeah, like I bounced back since then. But I think it's those moments of like being in those lows that I think would be super important to highlight now. But yeah, I'll talk more about that later in the pod. But the second low, or the second L that I've had, is like I felt pretty disconnected in the past couple weeks, because honestly my routine has been like pretty, it's been pretty siloed. It's been pretty solo of just like me on the grind, working, and then every now and then I'll have some human interaction, which would be through like Zoom calls, or like Slack huddles through Leland with the team. And then of course I go to classes and stuff, but I really don't talk to people at classes because I'm really just working the whole time. Yeah, it's just like a really big grind. So like the other part of me, like kind of going along with this, is thinking to myself, like, I have two really big things going on. The first is like college. And within college, it's just like so many things. Of course, there's like classes, but also just general like social life and like hobbies and things like that. So that's like college. And then is work. And the way I was kind of thinking about it, like really the other day, is that maybe my issue is that I can only focus on one thing. And so I should probably just pick one thing and use that as the main focus. Because right now it's like I'm doing both things, but like semi well, like not really well. But then it brought me back to the lesson of the story, which is thug it out, bro. This is one of those thug it out moments, I think, for me, is like, bro, how hard can I go? Like, how much pain tolerance can I have? So that's something I've been thinking about. Moving on to the next section of the podcast. This is the philosophizing section. These are random things that I've been thinking about. So the first thing is this idea of slope. And I've definitely brought it up on the pod before, but I think the easiest and best way to explain it, there was an opportunity coming into college for me when I could take on this job. I think they paid like $15 an hour, and all I had to do was sit at a desk. And it was called help desk. It's just part of like the Evans House like things that we do. And so as help desk, you really could just like do whatever you want. And then every now and then when someone comes in with a guest, like you would just have to check them in and stuff. Early on, I was pretty adamant, and I don't know why, but I had this strong conviction to not take that job. And like not take similar jobs where I could like work at a library, or go in caddy even. Like all those jobs that I really just didn't want to do. And I think the biggest reason why I didn't want to do it, and why I still don't do it to this day, is because the slope of growth. Because like realistically, doing the help desk job, sure, I get paid this $15 an hour right now, but like how much growth can I have? How much learning does that job actually give me? Because keep in mind, during this time, I was working free internships. Like literally 2-3 free internships where I wouldn't get paid anything. And even though they were free and weren't paying me anything, like on paper, it makes a lot more sense to take on the $15 an hour job. On paper, that might make more sense than the free job. But the thing is that the free job just had this way steeper slope, which is why I took it. And then I think it's a very similar thing right now that I'm experiencing with Leland. Like it's an extremely steep slope. Not only from the company perspective, looking at me, like I have a pretty steep slope, even though there's not like an insane like 10 years of experience resume that I have, but I'm willing to go in, learn, and get my hands dirty and be super scrappy and whatever it takes to win and solve these problems. It's a similar thing where I'm looking at Leland, and even just the explanation I told with like this new GM team and my new role in the company, like that is one of the really, really cool things about being in this position. Like the fact that I have this new role and I have this new slope that I can go after. Another thing I've been thinking about is this idea between extrinsic and intrinsic motivations. And I think the most clearly we can see this with economic theories, and like more specifically between like Marxism, communism slash socialism. I really don't fully understand the differences between them, but I think they kind of fall under this umbrella of being extremely intrinsically motivated versus capitalism, which is very extrinsic. And I'll try to explain this more. So in capitalism, it's very incentive based, and the incentive usually has to be extrinsic, which is why we place so much emphasis on like entrepreneurship and startups and solving problems, is because if people are willing to do this, and if we don't give them this big reward, which is money, then they won't be as innovative, which is how the idea and the thought goes. Whereas in like Marxism and socialism and all those things, they have this very intrinsic idea of motivation where yeah, like they don't need to have all this money that could be this possibility for them to win, because like they will just have this desire and intrinsic motivation to go out and simply innovate. Like it's just what humans are wired to do. And I think the reason I've been thinking about that is because I've kind of been applying it or seeing it in one of my other classes that I'm taking, which is like this intro to learning class. And it's similar to how we think like how classrooms should be structured. And this is just to say, should we have grades or not? Like how much should the grade be impacting students' motivation to do the work? So that was kind of some things I've been thinking about, and I think the reason grades are probably necessary, like definitely to an extent, but like pretty necessary in terms of like getting students to actually work, is because I'm definitely like lean more capitalistic, and so I think without grades, like people just wouldn't really have that desire to do school, or without like some type of reward. Because in the end, like the only reason I'm doing school right now, oh man, if I say this out loud, I'm just gonna think about dropping out. Freak. Yeah, the only reason I'm doing school right now is to like have the degree. And then the only reason like I'd have the degree is to get like the good job. But saying it out loud now, bro, like I already have the job. Like at this point, I might as well just do the job. Freak. Yeah, I have these moments in school where I'm just like, freak, I should just drop out, bro. But anyways, that's something I'm thinking about. And then another thing is, well, which kind of was like a, how do you say, like a highlight that happened this week, within the past week, is I hopped on a call with a Samoan dad. And this is a really weird, interesting story. But basically, there's this freshman over here who was half white, half Samoan. And she saw me wearing like this Tongan jersey, and then she came and was like, hey, we should like meet up and just like catch up. And so we grabbed dinner the next day, we were catching up. And then she was telling me the story of like her dad and her upbringing and her dad's upbringing. And it was really, really interesting, specifically because she was third generation, her dad was second generation, and then his parents were first generation. And the reason I thought that was super interesting is because like I'm in a very similar position as her dad, where honestly listening to his story, it's pretty similar to mine in the sense that like we both grew up like not really coming from much, and then we kind of like got super ambitious and super driven, and so we wanted to go to college, and then after college like go get the job, and then after the job like go and just pursue all these goals and grow a ton. And it's super interesting because like both of us, or like right now he is probably, call it 30-20 years ahead of where I will be. And so it's interesting to like have this conversation where he has already like gone through all these things that I will go through. And so he has so much like wisdom and life experience. And as we were talking, especially I was just asking him a ton of questions about like being a dad and raising his kids, and how it's like raising his kids, not really knowing the culture and not really being surrounded by many polys, and how they have like honestly a much easier life than he has had, or than I have had. And the thing that really came through in our call is his pride for his Polynesian roots, for his culture. And it really just got me thinking like, man, dude, I really want to like have the same spark, have the same like pride for the culture. And maybe pride isn't the right word, but it's just like being understanding the where we come from and like how cool it truly is. Like, man, Polynesians, bro, we really did some cool things. Like the fact that we sailed across the ocean to restore the heart of Tafiti. No, I'm joking. The fact that we like sailed across all these oceans and found new lands, and we really just like really played it by ear. Like we would just go out, we were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go in this direction, and we would just like we would just find somewhere and we would just like make it our own. Like that is just so cool to me. And so I'm like reading a new book that really just talks about like Polynesians and the way we've been finding our ways through all these lands. But it's just so cool to me to think about that, especially recently, because I've been kind of having like I think like a word you could call it is internalized racism, which is just to say like racist toward my own race. I don't think that's the right word, but I think the better word would be like I've just kind of been dogging on like other polys because like I truly think, and I kind of still hold this view, like the way polys are now is just, I think we've just fallen off, man. Like I truly think a lot of polys today, and when I say polys, I mean like the majority of Polynesians, and let's just focus on like majority of Polynesians in America. Man, a lot of us today, we're just like so lazy. And honestly, like not only lazy, but I think a lot of reason why it's kind of lazy is just the fact that like we don't understand the possibilities that are out there. Is because I think like we're very content with working the 9 to 5 and like living with our families and doing like the bare minimum to provide for them, which honestly, like there's nothing wrong with it. But I think kind of there is something wrong with it in the sense that like there's so much more potential that we have in us. And I think it's sad to just see people like waste their potential away working this like 9 to 5, whatever type of job at whatever airline. Like it truly is sad because they can experience so much more out of life and just like so much more providing for their family and like grow so much more as a person by pursuing all these cool things, all these cool like projects. But yeah, that's just something that I've been thinking about. That has to do with like culture. But one of the interesting things, as I was asking this someone, that going back to him, his name is Ken. But I was asking Ken, I was like, yeah, how are you going about like building this family? Like, what was it like raising them? And it was interesting because another thing is that the way he was talking about his family and like building his family was pretty similar to the way CEOs talk about building companies. It's like, yeah, he built this culture in his family of like always improving every day and not being afraid of failure and all these things, which I thought was interesting and something that I would definitely probably take into building my family, is really trying to instill these values and in these values of like always improving every day. So I thought that was pretty cool. But now moving on to the weekly roundup, these are random finds that I've had throughout the week. These really could be anything that just stuck with me. So first off is a quote, and it was a quote actually from the same guy, from Ken, and he said, if you want your kids to be someone, just be that person. And I really, really like this quote because I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't know why I'm thinking about like raising kids and stuff so early on. Like I'm 21, but I've been thinking about it, and this just reminded me of the idea of being the one. Like even trying to find my future wife, like, oh, I can list out all these different qualities that I want in that person, but really the best way is just to like become the one, become that person, and then it'll just attract the person that I'm looking for. And so this is kind of like a similar idea where like, yeah, I can list off all these different qualities and traits that I want my kids to become, but really the easiest way is just becoming that person. Like they will see the way I am and they will emulate the things that I do. Like maybe they won't, maybe they'll hate it, but I think this is probably like a really good piece of advice that I'll probably take as I'm raising my kids. The next thing and question that I have here is, how little can a thing make my day? I think I heard this off a Modern Wisdom podcast. The main idea of this question truly is to be grateful. Like, in the sense of what I was talking about earlier in this podcast of like raising the pain tolerance, in this sense, it's like lowering the gratitude bar, basically. It's like, how little can something make my day? Like, if someone, I don't know, says thank you to me and that makes my day, like, that just fills my entire life with so much gratitude. Whereas if something has to like be super over the top and someone has to like really go out of their way to do something for me and only that makes my day, then I'll have all these days that are just aren't made, and I'm not grateful for those days. And so I think that's the point of this question, is to really just be more grateful. And the other thing I found is this podcast, and it was with kind of the craziest crossover, Alex Hormozi and Logan Paul. Never thought they would do a crossover, but honestly wasn't that insightful. It was just pretty funny. Like, the dude, I think his name is Mike, or the other guy that Logan has on his pod. He's a pretty funny dude. And yeah, like the synergy that they had with Alex Hormozi was kind of interesting and funny, especially considering how, like, bro, Logan Paul, like, bro, I was probably watching his vlogs when I was in middle school, dude. Like, that was the jam. And it's kind of crazy to think about now. But that is all for that section. Now moving on to the life update. These are the 4 most important areas of my life, which is my God, myself, my people, and my work, in that order. So we'll go ahead and start off with update on my God. I think the update here is, honestly, it's probably been the same update that I've had for the past like 10 episodes or whatever, which probably spans 3-4 months. It's the same spot. Like, it's so off and on. Like, I am so off and on with praying and reading scriptures and doing everything like that. And yeah, man, like, I started this new thing where I try to set priorities for the week. And with those priorities, like, I try to say, like, okay, this is the number one habit that I really want to start doing. Like, and the way I think through these habits, like, it's kind of like the big domino type of habits. Like, if I can get this one thing right, then that has so many of these side effects and consequences that's positive in my life. I think a perfect example of this would be like sleep. If I can just get sleep right, and even like more clear than that, more narrow than that, if I can just close my laptop before I go to bed, like, that one simple habit that I can do every single night will lead to me like going to bed on time, which will lead to me waking up early and on time, which will lead to me like more energized, which would make me more motivated to work out, which helps, like, makes my life longer because I get better sleep and I work out and I'm healthier, and like all these different positive side effects that comes with that, like, one single habit. And so the reason I bring this up specifically in like the update for my God is because that's probably one of the big habits that will change my life. Realistically, right now, would be like truly building this relationship with God. Because honestly, like, I really don't have that relationship with God. Like, being straight up with you guys, like, and it's something that, like, I maybe pride myself on isn't the right word, but like, it's something I'm proud about, or something I'm happy about, is like the fact that, yes, I call myself a Christian, and yes, I hold these Christian beliefs and moral values, but like, even when it comes to the most basic questions, man, like my sister, we were talking about religion, and she asked me about like heaven and hell. It was a pretty basic question in Christianity, and my answer was, I don't know, which is like, and then the reason I don't know is because there's so many arguments for like the 2 basic conceptions of heaven and hell in my head, or the conception that I'm wrestling through, is like the Mormonism view, or the LDS view, and then like the traditional Christian view, which, like, those are the 2 conceptions, but freak, like, I'm not even clear on that. And maybe the whole point is like to not get clear on that yet, but just move forward one step at a time. Like, yeah, just part of me feels like I've been stuck in this limbo state for so long now. And maybe the move is just to like dip and stop calling myself a Christian, or like I just gotta commit, bro. Like, because I truly haven't committed I've like committed to living a Christian life, but like I haven't committed to living a Christian life, if that makes sense. Like, I haven't committed to praying regularly and reading those scriptures often. So yeah, that's the quick update there. And then update on myself. Honestly, physical health is pretty well. It was terrible, like I mentioned 2 weeks ago. Like, bro, I started binge eating again. It was only for like 2 nights, but like even then, bro, it was like the same dominoes type deal. But like recently, I've locked back in, especially with running, man. When I have a goal and like a date and I have it set in the calendar, like it helps me so much with wanting to actually get out of bed and doing the thing and training. Like, for example, today I ran 8 miles. It was like, I haven't ran that long, literally, probably in months, probably in 2-3 months. But I got out of bed and I did it. And a big reason why is because I have a half marathon next weekend, which I just like put in the calendar for something that I wanted to do. And then I have another marathon that I'm training for April, which will be like so long in the future, but of like having that just in the calendar, I think is helpful for working toward and building towards something. So yeah, physical health is going great. Mental health, I would say, is similar, but that is like pretty intertwined with my spiritual health, I think. And so yeah, 2 weeks ago, bro, I was just going through it, but now I'm kind of like locking back in a bit more. So hopefully I can keep this momentum up, keep this trajectory going. Anyways, update on my people. This was kind of cool. So I had the opportunity last weekend to be with my sisters, and that was really awesome. When they came over, I had a good time. Introduced them to my friends, which is pretty cool. Like, I don't think I've had that opportunity yet. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting, like getting both of their takes. Like my family's takes on my friends and also my friends' takes on my family. Because especially like one specific friend, like she's an only child. And so one of the cool things that I had when I went and visited her was like seeing her dynamic with all her friends as an only child. And so I'm curious her take on like seeing our dynamic as siblings with like 3 siblings who came out to visit. But yeah, that's cool. And then finally, update on my work. Yeah, honestly, the biggest update is, like I mentioned, the GM team that I'm going to be pivoting toward. Yeah, I'll just keep you guys updated there, but cool things happening. Bro, we're just trying to push through school, bro. It is a grind, but like we say, we finna thug it out. But I'll see y'all in the next episode. I record these episodes completely free to share success with everyone. So the only thing I ask is that if you learned anything or found something interesting in this episode, just leave a review and share it with a friend. Only takes 5 seconds and it would mean the world. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tatok see you.